Hey, greetings everybody. What's up? It's GleeCon, and I'm back bringing you another episode of Lore of Warcraft, and I thank you for tuning in. This show is a show where we try and cover every single thing in the World of Warcraft universe. That means every bit of lore in addition to every single piece of the game. So anything that might be lore related, which means all quests, every line of text. So we played through all of the older games, the pre-World of Warcraft games, and we are in the middle of a long-running adventure through the through classic era servers. So on those adventures, we're doing a Tanaris run. We've been doing that for a while. We're caught up, as will sometimes happen when you try to do a fully completionist run. It just happened to me on this character that you're looking at right now. This is One Track Mind. This is my anniversary character, and there's a reason why he's our person that we're looking at today when we don't typically run anniversary, and that's because today we're doing an in-game lore edition. So stay a while and listen as I take you to an in-game lore thing. We're gonna do an in-game lore. I think it's called like Mount Hyjal and Illidan, and it's in one of these southern buildings. I think it's in the inn, but I'm gonna just double check and peek at these different. It's a book. Can be found in 3 places in the game in Classic. Of course, retail offers a couple more options, but it can be found here in Ratchet. It can be found, I want to say maybe in Darkshore. Yeah, it can be found like in Aberdeen. And then it can also be found in Duskwood in Darkshire. So I think it can be found in here, which is actually, we've read another book right around here too. There it is. That's Mount Hyjal and Illidan's Gift, as I believe the name of this in-game lore. Let me double check what I researched before. Yep. Okay, so this is an easy spot, Ratchet, to find it. This guy was also, he was my closest classic character to one of those 3 spots, which is why I picked him. Old One-Track Mind. He also was stuck recently. I just had, it took me, I want to say, 41 and a half hours of farming on Anniversary to find the Harvester because it's such a busy server, the Dream Scythe server. I almost went insane doing it. It was the longest that I've had to hunt for any one particular quest yet. But he did it, and because I do everything in a completionist way, and I don't even know why at this point. But we are also stuck doing that with our Tanaris person. They're stuck getting the eggs. But without further ado, let's read the book. This is the source of today's episode. The few night elves that survived the horrific explosion rallied together on crudely made rafts and slowly made their way to the only landmass in sight. So remember, we have been dealing with lore all the way surrounding to during the War of the Ancients and the Sundering. We most recently on our lore watched the Warbringers Ajara, which showed what happened immediately after the Sundering when Ajara sunk to the ocean and became the Queen of the Nagas, a queen of one of the old gods. So now we're looking at what happened with the rest of the Night Elves who are floating in the sea that didn't sink to the bottom. Somehow, by the grace of Elune, Malfurion, Tyrande, and Cenarius had survived the Great Sundering. The weary heroes agreed to lead their fellow survivors and establish a new home for their people. Probably not fully just by grace. Those guys are all epic and demigods. As they journeyed in silence, they surveyed the wreckage of their world and realized that their passions had wrought the destruction all around them. Though Sargeras and his legion had been ripped from the world by the well's destruction, Malfurion and his companions were left to ponder the terrible cost of victory. And by them saying they realized their passions had wrought destruction, you could say the passion in which they defeated him, but they were Sargeras, but they were really backed into a corner. I think they're more generally speaking about the Night Elves' passions, and even that is a little bit of a corruption. It was Ajara's power hungry. Sure, she had people that went along and did it with her, but this is more about individual consequences, I feel like, than the overall corruption of the Night Elf people. get a bad rap, I think, for their role in the Sundering. There were many highborn who did survive the cataclysm unscathed. They made their way to the shores of the new land along with the other night elves. Though Malfurion mistrusted the highborn's motivations, he was satisfied that they could cause no real mischief without the well's energies. So we know most of them were sunk with the queen and became the Naga, but we also know that some exist, and those are chronicled what they do elsewhere. They eventually go over to the Eastern Kingdoms, found their own kingdom, and they remain high elves all the way up until the Lich King forces them to take a pact, and they, walk a path that leads them to become the Blood Elves. And even up until Cataclysm, there's still actually some high elves sprinkled throughout the world. I don't know that they still exist, but they do exist canonically, at least until Cataclysm, alongside Blood Elves all throughout the world. There were, so that's an interesting thing. We'll have to kind of see, do we ever address that? As the weary mass of night elves landed upon the shores of the new land, they found that the holy mountain Hyjal had survived the catastrophe. Seeking to establish a new home for themselves, Malfurion and the night elves climbed the slopes of Hyjal and reached its windswept summit. As they descended into the wooded bowl nestled between the mountain's enormous peaks, they found a small, tranquil lake. To their horror, they found that the lake's waters had been fouled by magic. Oh, that was the other thing on that last page when they talked about the highborn. Well, they're cut off from the well. Yeah, there was this rich history of them being arcane magic users, and now they can't really, although that's questionable. Because obviously the other caster racers can do it just fine, and that's kind of because of the nature of where that magic comes from. They might not be as concentrated and powerful, but it is a lot. It still permeates the world. I've always thought it was interesting how Hyjal was cut off. When I was first playing Classic back in the day, I would always wonder, what is that central zone on the map that you can never go to? And again, I wonder why. Is it cloaked off or whatever? I will have to refresh my memory on that one. But the waters are already fouled by magic, so it says. Illidan, having survived the Sundering as well, had reached Hyjal's summit long before Malfurion and the Night Elves. In his mad bid to maintain the flows of magic in the world, Illidan had poured his vials, which contained the precious waters from the Well of Eternity, into the mountain lake. That is retconned in the War of the Ancients trilogy, and going forward, it's not so much that he arrived first and tainted it. It was a last desperate act he did, and it wasn't his vials. He still maintained some. This is the early, nascent, almost legendary version of that story. The well's potent energies quickly ignited and coalesced into a new Well of Eternity. The exultant Illidan, believing that the new well was a gift to future generations, was shocked when Malfurion hunted him down. Malfurion explained to his brother that magic was innately chaotic, and that its use would inevitably lead to widespread corruption and strife. Still, Illidan refused to relinquish his magical powers. One, how could he relinquish the magical powers? That's kind of silly. Also, this mention of the arcane on the side of chaos, way back in the First Chronicles, look back to the first episode or so that we did on this channel 1,500 episodes ago. There's a chart in Chronicles that shows, and you can also look it up online, the kind of yin and yang, almost zodiac chart style, like antipode set relationships they have between order and chaos, and where these different things, where these different elements like arcane and nature and the light and the void fall in that spectrum. So arcane, I guess we're arguing, I'd have to look at the chart again, falls on the side of chaos. But yeah, I think it pretty much was like, dude, you're already jacked. He was already remember, he was already banished and trapped for thousands of years, 10,000 years, I believe. No, that's leading up to Warcraft 3. Okay, so this is what leads to his imprisonment. Knowing full well where Illidan's ruthless schemes would eventually lead, Malfurion decided to deal with his power-crazed brother once and for all. With Cenarius' help, Malfurion sealed Illidan within a vast underground barrow prison where he would remain chained and powerless until the end of time. To ensure his brother's containment, Malfurion empowered the young warden Maiev Shadowsong to be Illidan's personal jailer. The outcome of that is chronicled in Warcraft 3, Maiev's responsibility, and then response to his eventual freedom. All of these are covered in previous episodes where we talk about these characters as individuals. Concerned that destroying the new well might bring about an even greater catastrophe, the Night Elves resolved to leave it be. However, Malfurion declared that they would never practice the arts of magic again. Under Cenarius' watchful eye, they began to study the ancient arts of druidism that would enable them to heal the ravaged earth and regrow their beloved forests at the base of Mount Hyjal. So really we don't know, other than the fact that this explains why Night Elves do not participate in the arcane, and it also explains why they're the only race that practices druidism among the Alliance, because it's an ancient art, and they're starting to regrow the forests in Hyjal. Really quick aside also, if you look this up on Wowhead, it talks about Mount Hyjal and Illidan's gift. So we're explaining what is Mount Hyjal. If we look at the map ourselves here, the book is over, by the way. This is Mount Hyjal, which you cannot enter until Cataclysm. So you have to wait and sit and think about this for 6 years, wondering what is that place and why can you not get there. But additionally, Illidan's gift being bringing another, basically a world tree there. How does that work? How does that affect the Night Elves in the surrounding area? Because these essentially are Night Elf-ish reasons. This is a Jara where it all went down, so it's kind of corrupted. Winterspring is maybe too snowy for all of that, but you have the Moonglade, you have Darkshore, Fellwood is corrupted, so maybe we'll explain how that goes, and you have Ashenvale. So everything surrounding this entire part, other than the snowy part, is really this was the Night Elf Kingdom. And then you get into the borderlands down here where it starts to get a little bit more deserty and mountainy, as well as Teldrassil off to the side. But this one person's comment, a book that tells the story of the heroic battle with Illidan atop Mount Hyjal. That is not true. I have to say, it is not a heroic battle. They do not fight Illidan. I'm tempted to want to say, and it gets 31 upvotes. It's not even true. Come on, bro. All right, you know what? We're not going to do it. We are true lore masters, and so are you. Thank you for watching and listening to this show. If you like it, subscribe, smash the like, make a comment, reach out, look at the Patreon, where I have continued to crank out, this time covering a live-action Assassin's Creed show called Assassin's Creed Lineage. We did the first episode watched together earlier a couple days ago. This episode's in the pipe 5x5, and I thank you so much for watching and listening and tuning in. I'll see you all next time on Lore of Warcraft.